Right, so, yeah, right, am I like really tiny? Oh, there we go. Okay. That's better, right? Yeah, that's great. So I'm not looking up to you. Okay, I wasn't sure if you were gonna do.
Foundation. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, 1882 is dedicated to preserving Chinese stories and oral histories, and also kind of revitalizing Chinatown. So if you want to check out more about what we do, our website is 1882foundation.org. Our executive director is also here tonight, so if you have any questions, Ted, shout out, put them back. And so, yeah, it's my honor to introduce Ingrid Hu Dahl, author, leadership coach, and TEDx speaker. Ingrid is the founder of her own coaching and consulting practice and has led leadership development at companies like Meta, Gap, and Capital One. She's also the author of the acclaimed memoir, Sun Shining on the Morning Snow, a lyrical exploration of identity, freedom, and the courage to live. The conversation with Ingrid tonight is Jaya Saxena. Jaya. So
That's okay.
DEI strategist and lawyer. Please join me in welcoming both of them.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining and spending part of your Friday evening with us. I feel very honored to be sitting next to Ingrid, to be in conversation with her this evening. And how fitting is it that we are having this conversation around issues of belonging and community and inclusion in a space like this, where we heard just a little bit about the history. And so it's very striking to me that 50 years after the Chinese Exclusion Act and the laws to make interracial marriage legal, which are topics that come up in the book, we're sitting in a space during a pretty turbulent time in our own political climate. So I feel like in a way, we're coming full circle being here in this space.
I also just want to thank Ellen and the 1882 Foundation, of course, Lauren, my cousin, who kind of connected all this. So thanks, Lauren. And of course, Teach. We had a podcast earlier, the four of us, as all mixed Asian folks. That was really special. And of course, Jaya, she's so badass. And I had the amazing privilege of basically interviewing you for a virtual event earlier this year. We just were like, let's do something together in DC. So I also just want to thank, like, there's so many historical connections that are here from the Institute for Women's Leadership. There's two, by the way, you guys had to chat. We got Capital One represented. There's just like so much love, and I so appreciate you supporting me because, you know, just laying bare your story and having people show up and want to read it just feels like kind of this extra layer of community that I don't know if I ever had. And so thank you for the gift of that.
So I'm not sure how many of you have actually read the book yet. If you haven't, you are in for a huge treat. I wanted to start just by sharing that there were so many elements of this book that resonated with me. And if you read it, you might have found that there are aspects of the book that have also resonated with you. I have a list of things that really spoke to me. Everything from searching for acceptance and belonging. I think many of us are on that journey at some point in our lives. The lineage that you have of incredible women, warrior spirits, as you refer to them, in your family. And also some degree of intergenerational trauma and grief as well. The idea of defying or challenging expectations that society places upon us, even your experiences with boys, all of those things are things that really many of us probably could relate to or at some point found relevant to our own lives. And to your point, Ingrid, I mean, one of the things that I'm most inspired by your book is the fact that you had the courage to not only live it, but write about it, putting pen to paper. I think many of us have stories, or there's a storyteller within us, and it takes a lot of courage to share that with the world. So for that, so I wanted to ask you, your book blends memoir, meditation, and storytelling. What inspired you to write Sun Shining on Morning Snow Now? And how does it speak to this moment that we're in right now, a cultural reflection on race, identity, and healing?
Great question, thank you. And a lot of you probably remember aspects of the journey where my mother was sick and was, on her journey dying from cancer, which is a hard topic. So I will just kind of bring us back, 4 months after that, I felt driven, compelled, like I need to write my story. I need to lay bare my story and in the process weave in aspects of my mother's story, aspects that I knew. And I felt like in our kind of multi-layered identity culture, there was so much complexity in my mother as a character, but such a badass person. And we had such a painful division around my sexuality. And I felt like it was important to share, like, that is real, that is happening. And also there's this hope and possibility for transformation, for forgiveness, for healing, for a lot of love, and maybe even inviting people to be in our shoes and to want to be empathetic and curious and connect across difference. How might our story do a lot of healing for other people and encourage people to choose their truth and to live boldly? Because I don't know if everybody has learned how to do that, know how powerful it can be after it feels scary and like intimidating and maybe even lonely. So I felt like writing this story was going to be cathartic for me, which it was, but I was hoping it'd be a gift to the world. And I was not planning for it to come out in this Trump era. Like I didn't know when, right? We had a plan. It's coming out in like spring of 2026, summer 2026. So it was amazing to see what was happening in the world and the divisiveness. And I felt like, man, what a time to share this, and especially the historical reference that you bring to light, where I was born in 1980, 13 years after interracial marriage is legalized. And now as a queer woman who's married these 11 years, that right is being potentially, like, and we hope not, but challenged and revoked. So I think these kinds of things, we forget that we are members of a constellation of history. We are participating in this history, and the sharing and telling, however they are, they don't have to be in a book. But I think about my colleagues and my friends, how each of our like dust of constellations of who we are as humans have touched us and just been part of the journey. So how do we maintain those? Remember, like at the heart, we are so much more similar than we are different. I'm amazed that some people have come up to me with very different political standpoints, with such different age brackets, generational gaps, etc., and have been like, I finished your book and cried and felt like you were speaking to my experience, and they're not mixed Asian, they're not queer. I'm like, tell me more. And they're like, no, it's a story of not always feeling like you belong, not feeling like you fit in the sort of box that society or your family or culture wants you to fit in or requires you to, and what it feels like to lose somebody you love, a parent. And unfortunately, if you haven't lost a parent, very likely you will experience that. But if I wanted people to feel like that could happen, you could feel what that's like, but yet there's still being hope. There's still being uplift. And I think we have to remember that even in those dark, dire, lost times, there's still a crack that opens a possibility. There's light that comes in. So I wanted to share that too.
Well, so Ingrid and I also share that my mom has also passed. And so we share that experience together, and you write about it so powerfully in terms of what it was like at the start of the pandemic. We all heard so many stories about people suffering and not being able to see loved ones. You write about that in such a beautiful way. And the other thing is that you and I talked about this, how the power of storytelling. And when we actually approach people, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, when we approach people from a place of curiosity and empathy, it allows us to see people in a different light. And I find that common shared experience and understanding too. So we have to talk about the title. So the title itself, so sun shining on morning snow, it's symbolic. And I want you to share a little bit more about how were you, it's both your Chinese given name and also a visual that bookends the book. So tell us about how this title, how did you come to the title, and how does it capture your own journey navigating race and life and healing and belonging and all the things that we've touched on?
Would it be helpful if I read?
Oh, yes.
First with that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I know, okay, right. So why don't you read that passage? Yes, please. That starts on page 9, I think.
Yeah. Can you all hear me okay? Because I know it's kind of loud. Yeah, good. Thanks, Lauren. When I entered the world in 1980, interracial marriage had been legal in the United States for only 13 years. That year, the US Census reported only 3% of married couples were from different racial groups. My parents' love required resilience. Racism and sexism held firmly to the surface of the bubble they occupied. Passersby did not hide their dismay at their open affection. My parents' truth, their love, was an act of bravery, a declaration of sorts, but also one that would always have a spotlight. Their life together would be a spectacle, open to ridicule, envy, and unwanted glares and judgmental gazes coming from all directions, even from those closest to them. As a young couple, they pushed aside these pressures with a bravery I admired. Their courage anchored me as the first of the family's next generation, and the first Hapa at that. I respectfully use the term Hapa, a term that originally comes from the Hawaiian phrase Hapa haole, meaning half white. Although no one referred to me as mixed race or Hapa as a child, being the first Hapa family member is of great importance to me. The mixing of race, culture, and language would be a part of our lives from here on out. As my mother recovered from giving birth, she chose a Chinese name for her new baby girl, Tao Shue-Qing. She chose Dao as our Chinese American family name because it was an approximate transliteration of Ba's Scandinavian surname, Dahl. Ma associated her little baby girl with the pure and delicate beauty of newly fallen snow. Years later, she would describe the meaning of my name as the sun shining on morning snow after a storm passed, its glittery landscape sparkling like crystals. I love my name, sun shining on morning snow. So that's partially why I titled it, but I was laughing with my cousin Lauren earlier in the podcast with Ellen and Teach that the original transcript was called Hapa Grandma. And part of that was really like I wanted to be the stand-in elder that I never had. I never had a grandmother who knew what it was like to be mixed. And I still don't know if this next generation has an elder who's sharing their stories like this, especially not just around being Hapa, but also queer. So I think it's great that we changed and pivoted. My publisher was like, "You're not a grandmother. We're not going to call it Hapa Grandma." That's cute.
We tried.
Yeah, we tried.
I mean, that they should come on in. There's a seat up here, a seat over here if you want. I think that's a beautiful image. The glittery landscape sparkling like crystals. And I have to say, there's so much to a name. And I think sometimes we often lose sight of how our names are so critical to our identity, which is why I appreciated when Ellen, you asked how I pronounced it. No, you asked in the beginning, but that's my point of I think they are such a critical part of who we are, and they shape us, and we're shaped by our names. So thank you for sharing how the title came to be with that story. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, the fact that we are here at the 1882 Foundation. That's, as you were saying earlier, the centers stories of migration and belonging. Ingrid, you've shared with us your being a mixed race, queer author. So can you tell us more about what you've learned from creating belonging for yourself, which you describe in many different vignettes throughout the book? But how have you created that sense of belonging for yourself?
My goodness, I find that belonging is complicated, especially with my journey where I didn't feel like I belonged in any category. I didn't quite belong in the white community. I didn't, quite belong in the Asian community. And that is very emphasized in these stories about two almost identical bullying incidences, one with a white boy at a bus stop and one at an Asian church by an Asian brother. And I'm like, what? And can I say this on the recording, the SHRT? Okay. Okay, so, if you haven't read it, there's a scene where I'm a kindergartner and this fifth grader in the neighborhood, it's mostly white in New Jersey. I'm sitting there and it's like cold and there's a bunch of little kids. He's the oldest. He's kind of popular kid. I remember his name and I will not name his name. But he calls me half piece of shit. And as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, I'm like, actually was first just like, was that to me? Or is that, who is that to? Oh, it's to me. Oh, it's to me. And I described the way his face looks. It's kind of contorted and angry, like as if it's like a projection of something else, but yet it's directed so aggressively, so almost violently to me. And then the same thing happens in an Asian church where a teenage boy, when I'm a little bit older, says, half piece of shit. I'm like, God damn it. And I'm like, if we could all just look in the mirror and decide what shit that is, But I think what's important is when you grow up and it's not just the bullying, it's the reminder every day of people asking like, what are you? And where do you come from, or where are your people from? And being frustrated by my responses if I wasn't giving you the answer of my ethnic background.
Yep.
And I think learning those things about, wow, everything is around whether I answer this correctly, whether I give what people want, but always being reminded that I don't belong and I'm an outsider. Yeah. So I think fast forward through this journey and like being a rock musician and being in the queer scene.
Talk about being a badass. That's right there.
Thank you. It feels like a million years ago. You kind of like find ways to participate in belonging, and how does that feel? So Rock Camp for Girls is a really amazing place where I hadn't quite come out yet. I don't think I was even totally sure that I was queer, but the entire community just embraced me as me. And there was a lot of multicultural folks. There was a lot of gender bendiness, and it just felt like this is freedom. This is like nobody cares. You're included just by existing. That is the foundation in which we then operate and engage with each other. So even in workplaces, I find that we have to actively choose to participate in belonging. And that decision to choose that is very meaningful. It's basically saying I'm willing to assume safety, I'm willing to assume trust, and I'm willing to engage with you all as if we are a chosen community, as if that baseline of inclusion is given always. But that's a choice. And I hope what people take from this is, lean into choosing that. And it will take a lot of effort, but why not? Why not make that effort? So I will just say that that's been a journey, and it's newer from the second half of my life, of being able to participate and choose that participation in belonging.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and these stories that you shared, both about the young boy and then also this whole part where you talk about being approached by random strangers who say, what are you? And where are you or your people from? No, where are your people from? right? I think many of us in the room might have encountered being asked, whether it's that question or something that somehow suggests you are not us, you are other. And so thank you for sharing those really powerful stories that clearly, have had a lasting impact. I mean, to this day, share them in such great detail. So we've talked a little bit about this, a topic that I care a lot about. I write about it, I think about it, which is around grief and collective healing. And you share your experience. It's quite a remarkable sort of, as you said, transformation with your mom, from how you grew up and then how your relationship was towards the end of her life. And they're deeply personal yet universal. We talked a little bit earlier about how grief can show up in different ways, and yet loss is loss. There's a fundamental universality around the experience of loss. So how has your grief, or how has grief deepened your own understanding of lineage and the ways stories connect generations across time and place? And maybe you can share with us another passage about when you were in Taiwan with your mom.
Okay.
To help us better understand that.
Man, I will say, going back to sharing when I started writing the book, 4 months after my mother passed away, I was talking about that crack. There's like a crack that opens. For those of you who might have experienced loss, that might resonate with you. And that cracking open led to some really interesting things. So before my mother passed away, we had a lot of healing experiences, which I explain in the book. But what you don't know is that since then, a lot of interesting things have happened, where I feel connected to my mom's spirit, or however she's transitioned. There's been dreams, there's been automatic writing, there's been these forget-me-nots, which actually got tattooed on my arm. We had planted them when I was 5 by our house, and they just started showing up randomly right as the book was being launched, and it was just so beautiful to see. I was like, oh my God, there's forget-me-nots wild around our house. And we had lived there for 3.5 years. So what's crazy is they didn't exist before. I know I'm getting choked up, but it's really so touching and so powerful. And it's like love. It's love being like shown in a special, like physical world way. The other thing I think that's so amazing is my wife lost her father very tragically in a motorcycle accident when she was 21. And the wild thing too is, for her father, it's calla lilies, and they keep following us no matter where we live. These calla lilies wild show up. So we're just kind of paying attention to this other dimension where, animals and plants and things are kind of showing up in this magical, almost sci-fi way. So I know you didn't ask me this, but
no, for us, it's my sister and I, it's bougainvillea and butterflies. And there's a lot of meaning behind butterflies, but where you go and you travel and you just somehow see them around you everywhere.
Yeah. And for somebody I just talked to, it was like a deer showed up and was looking, it's very special. And I hope that people pay attention to those things, because they're just surprising. Like I'm a little bit of a physics nerd. And so there's a concept called quantum entanglement that I might start writing another story that kind of helps make, death and what happens after we die a little more palpable. Because there's some really great books out there, but I think kind of a sci-fi version where I'm trying to chase my mom through this membrane into this other dimension would be really cool, because things are happening.
Book in the works.
But on that note, let me read a little bit about my mom. And part of that is that we're at 1882. My mom, came to the States to study graduate school and happened to meet and fall in love with my father, who is an undergraduate student. We didn't find out that information years later. My mom lied about her age for most of our, sorry, Aunt Janet, you didn't maybe know this, but she lied about her age.
I knew.
Yeah, she wanted them to be the same age, but anyway. I don't know how she did all
And Aunt Janet is your mom's sister?
in-law, sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law.
My father's sister.
Got it. We're here.
I know. Thank you for being here.
Okay, so I'm still surprised that no one has documented my mom's exceptional, sought-after leadership qualities and her inventive ability to think into the future and design software to meet consumer demands. Later, when I was in my early 20s, Ma shared her vision of the future, telling me that technology would be controlled in the palm of your hand. Our phones would turn on our TVs and lower our window blinds. I struggled to follow. I remember asking her, Ma, why would people want that? And she looked at me with her eyes bright towards the future. They don't know if they want that yet, but they will. To be clear, Ma wasn't a stereotypical tech nerd. She was a fashionista, a total babe, a brilliant thinker, and a dreamer. She was complex. She somehow balanced being a creative, scribbling in her journal on weekends, capturing dreams, poetry, and ideas that mattered to her, while navigating the rigidity of the corporate world and the demands of her growing devout Christianity. She became the family breadwinner who traveled the world and drank whiskey sours on business trips, which some of you remember I have also done on our business trips, while Bob sang and danced in the kitchen, making dinner after he got home from work. Thank you, Dad. Every other year or so, we would get the opportunity to fly to Taipei, Taiwan, and visit Nai and family. I've loved these trips. It was another world. My family in Taipei had hired help who would take me out with them on their errands. As a child, I rode on the back of scooters without a helmet, the wind whipping at my face as we sped through the busy city streets. At every turn, a new scene or scent came and went. We whizzed past delicious street food being sold by vendors. At red lights, I'd watch people on sidewalks bartering for the best price on produce or counterfeit clothing, one of my personal faves. These trips infused my life with color and instilled in me a taste for adventure, culture, and language. Chinese, its visual descriptors, imagery, and tones, was lodged in my brain. Chinese was essentially my first language, followed by English, and at home we spoke a mix of the two, Chinglish. Mandarin is a tonal language with 4 specific tones. When spoken, each word must be pronounced with the correct tone. If you get the tone mixed up, what you say could have a radically different meaning from what you intended. The written Chinese language is made up of visual pictures, displays of characters in action. When I was a child, Ma would explain each character to me in detail, how each partition of strokes displayed a scene of characters and actions. I was enamored with her descriptions. Each stroke came to life on the page as a story, one that my imagination expanded tenfold into a colorful world. In Taipei, Ma would spend time getting a new hairstyle, upcycling her fashion, and without missing a beat, hitting up her favorite bakeries. Each time she entered these bakeries, she would close her eyes and take in a whiff of the scents she rarely smelled back in New Jersey. She'd pick up a tray and tongs, slowly examine each display case of bread with cream or pork floss, and eventually move towards the cakes and sweets. There would always be plain sliced mianbao, beautifully wrapped as a square loaf, fluffy, sweet, delightful. But Ma gravitated to her favorite, the egg tart. I'd watch her eyes widen as she locked in on this treat, which instilled in me the idea that desserts and precious moments of indulgence are worth savoring. As a young child, I didn't feel different in Taipei. I took little notice of the attention I received for my mixed appearance. I couldn't always understand what people said. At this point in my young life, I felt incredibly free, free to observe and take part in the world, free to go fast on a scooter in a city that was part of who I was and where my mother came from. Ma and her city were magical.
I mean, the imagery, I don't know about all of you, but when I read it the first time, I was in Taipei. I was in Taiwan, with you and I was picturing your mother, and I love how you describe her, the fashionista. I can see those elements in you, Ingrid. Being a total babe, a brilliant thinker, and the square loaf, and I mean just the descriptions of it all. For me, you take me right to that place when I can see it and feel it and experience it. So that is just beautifully written. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about leadership. You've led, and I think you said you have some colleagues here, maybe.
Oh, I sure do.
You sure do. Amazing. There's a seat.
Yeah, there's a seat here. Come on.
So you've led leadership and inclusion programs at global companies like Meta, Gap, Capital One. Tell us more about how about your memoir's message about identity and authenticity, and how that impacts leadership today. Because I will say, now more than ever, I think we need leaders in the workplace who foster a sense of belonging, who leverage their team's varied perspectives to help advance the work, leaders who build workplaces where everyone feels respected and valued and seen and heard and has opportunities for success and advancement, all of those things. So how do you see your message in this book influencing folks in the workplace and leaders who have a great opportunity to really create the kind of workplace we want for the future?
You know, it's interesting. I've had a few people in podcasts ask me, why didn't you write like a leadership book about, you know, your career or whatever? And I was like, oh, this is a leadership book. It's a leadership origin story. It's like laying bare what happened and how I learned through a lot of trial and tribulation how to be a good human with others. And I definitely failed several times. I wasn't always great, but damn, I wanted to figure it out. It's almost like a design challenge. Like, how do I figure out how to, like, not just be an outsider, to feel like I can participate and choose to participate in belonging and meet people where they are. And I'm gonna call out Jen Fox. Jen Fox introduced me to coaching. And I remember I was such a naysayer. I was like, I don't know, Jen. And Jen was like, you know, determined because she's a fierce badass. And she really changed my mind. And then something that also happened at Capital One is we received coaching. I think it was Better Up. And I had this amazing coach for an entire year who is a Black man named Ken. We're still friends. And it changed how I was leading. And I think I naively thought I was like a pretty good leader. And I realized in that journey, I was like, oh my God, I think I have this all wrong. You know, I'm not really showing up with leading with curiosity. I don't think I'm listening to fully understand and to learn and grow. I'm listening to respond, which is very common. And especially right now, people are like freaking out, not listening. The slowing down to show care requires also asking these open-ended questions that start with what, which coaching teaches you. And so I was really humbled when I finally was like, okay, I think I want to be a coach and follow Jen's footsteps. I was so humbled because I realized not only was I not listening to the depth I wanted, I really didn't know how to ask questions that started with what. I was great at saying, tell me. I was great at saying, maybe why. I was great at saying, like, how are you going to do that? But not what. What do you think about that? What about that inspires you? You know, you can still say, tell me more, but the question should start with what. And so now when I work with leaders, I try to bring them back to this baseline, like foundational basics of listening. What's level 1, 2, 3? Let's try to do 2 and 3 always. And how do you slow down to really lead with curiosity and ask a question that starts with what?
Yeah.
Don't lead with an assumption, lead with a question.
Yeah. Brene Brown has this great quote where she said, we all too often listen to respond and not to understand. And so it amazes. These things seem so simple, just listening to empathize, to understand, instead of constantly thinking, okay, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? And being empathetic and being curious and genuinely wanting to understand where people are coming from, and courageous. I mean, these are all, we've talked about this, these are all inclusive leadership behaviors. And inclusive leadership is effective, excellent leadership. So in a way, it seems so simple, yet it's so hard.
Yeah. And also letting go, I had a really great experience where, I was laid off at a really large company, which had a lot of layoffs, and it was very humbling and also just what I needed. And I didn't know that, but I think when you realize that you might have attached too much of your identity to your job, to the ladder, to your title, these things come with like, yeah, I'm, finally a blah, whatever it is. That can really trip you up in a bit of a trap. And I loved being in that trap. I was in it. And I was like, oh my God, this is like really, like I'm feeling like I'm hitting a rock bottom. Why am I feeling like this? Why am I losing my confidence in myself as a leader because of this? And I think it's good for us to hear that there is so much happening right now in the ecosystem. People are scared. Their layoffs are happening left and right. I'm trying to talk to people who are inventing the Amazon like arm thingy, but then also dealing with the integrity of people losing their job. It's like, it's wildly complex. And I think it's important to remember at the core of who we are, not just the title or the job that we have. It's great to have those things, but remembering my choice to live boldly also means how I show up right now, how I show up with my community, with people I care about, the curiosity of asking a question. I wish I could ask my mom more questions, but that even makes me more excited to, as a leader, ask people questions, like to be deeply curious and learn things. So much I don't know based on my assumptions. And I have been assumed very intensely, like people have assume things about me that have been harmful. I'm like, oh man, that's not who I am. And but you also relinquish what is a misconception of control. Like a lot of the people who are leaders that I coach right now have a kind of like weird grip of control that is false. It's kind of like a snake eating its own tail. And it's like, well, the control is happening because you're holding on so tight to control or this concept of control. And when they're kind of like released from, oh yeah, I have choices here. And what is my relationship to control? I think all those things help us just breathe a little bit more and look at things and say, you know what? I'm really grateful for my life and the things that I've had living up to this point. What do I want to experience? And what do I need? Is it a coach? Is it talking to a friend? Is it engaging with my family or my community differently? What do I need to do to like live more boldly in the way that feels not from a control, but a place of like maybe even purpose, which I don't say purpose with a big P, which feels overwhelming, but the little ones, the little P's of like, I'm just going to show up with what feels innately natural as more kindness today. I'm not going to assume that person cut me off because they're a raging asshole. As somebody who maybe is scared that they're going to lose their job, and if they're late again, they're going to lose it, but they had a kid at home and a crisis going on, a sick parent, and just having as much kindness and empathy and still finding a little bit of lightheartedness in the fact that I'm a human and I still want to be like that asshole.
Right.
And that's normal, right? We're imperfect. I guess part of it is like, we're so imperfect, and how beautiful is that, that we're all collectively imperfect.
Yeah. I mean, I've even found just asking people genuinely how they're doing.
And wanting to hear
and
what
wanting to, it's so easy to just say, how are you fine? And you're like walking past to the hallway. But every time I have asked from a true place of curiosity, people have opened up, and it never ceases to amaze me what someone is going through. And remembering that by just, it happens every single time, especially right now, especially these past few years that have been so hard for so many people. How are we on time, Ingrid? Okay, maybe we should jump to the last question. Okay. The last, wait, okay.
They're coming for me.
No, okay. Oh, I know what we wanted to do. Can we, wait, let me see here. Okay, the last question here. But then I want to talk about living boldly.
Okay.
Okay, and I want to end with a certain passage. I think I
You
told
got
you.
it.
Okay.
Yes, you did.
So we also, coming full circle to the fact that we're here in this amazing space, which is about building bridges through shared history. What are you've talked a little bit about this, but what are some conversations you hope your book will spark or continue to spark around themes of resilience, connection, and living boldly in the increasingly diverse multicultural world that we are living in?
I think this is a moment to be rebellious and to find joy and maybe even playfulness in it. I know that might sound counterintuitive, but I'll just go back to writing a book. I've never written a book. It kind of feels really bad being in your mid-40s and being not good at something. You're a beginner at something. And instead of dealing with those feelings, I really leaned into like trying to just learn how to, how do you write a book? And I was amazed that after writing half the manuscript, my writing coach was like, "Oh, good job, you found your writing voice." I'm like, "What? Just now?" Keep going, like don't stop, but you're gonna have to go back and write everything else again, right? Rewrite it. I'm like, oh my God. And like it's those kinds of moments too that feel really hard or you could give up. That's a parallel to what I'm trying to say and convey is, after I just kept going, similar to what that coach was saying, and I kind of got into a groove of where it felt playful. It felt joyful and creative and interesting about this moment. And yeah, gosh, why didn't I ever talk to my mom about her experience coming to the United States to study? Like I found some of it in pieces of journals that were half written in English and half written in Mandarin. There's a lot of interesting themes with my mom's experience that are bifurcated, like half, which I put in the book. And I think what's important in this story is like remembering that there's joy in the unknown, to find the playfulness, even in these like really strange dark times, or the hope and the crack in transformation and possibility, or the moment of healing where it feels like you're losing, but maybe this is a time of growth. Like there's these kinds of almost contradictions that can exist at the same time.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Multiple truths.
yeah,
Can coexist.
this is perhaps the way I would wrap is, I think sharing our stories and investing in that and laying there and sharing it with the world is a push for hope, a push for that choosing to participate and wanting to be in this collective. I think it's around saying, hey, you've potentially one life to live or one life that you remember living. Why not live courageously, live boldly, live with a lot of love, caring, kindness to other people, including yourself.
Do you want to read this passage, or do
read
you
it.
want me to read it? I just loved. I'm gonna pick two snippets of it, and then do we want to ask folks to do? Okay, we
If
do
you
that.
want.
Yeah, and then ask
Yeah,
questions, some questions. Okay, so I want to read from the end of the book. I think our ultimate goal is to live a good life to the very end. We have purposes larger than ourselves. Faced with my own mortality, I begin to understand the meaning of courage. Courage is strength in the face of knowledge of what is to be feared or hoped. For the human being, life is meaningful because it's a story, and in stories, endings matter. And then I'm going to go on, skip down a bit further. Choosing to live your truth and be who you are is the most rebellious act against fear of rejection, disappointment, shame, and abandonment. To choose fear comes at great cost to you and others. Choosing your truth comes with liberation, with the possibility to change the dynamics of cultural and familial pressure placed upon you and those closest to you. So loved
What
that.
I loved about what you just did, and I could totally cry, is it's the first half was what my mom wrote. And there's actually like a picture of, her card where she writes it to me and my wife after we spent the summer together during her cancer journey. As the last time we saw her healthy. So it's beautiful that you kind of combine what she wrote, which is so powerful that she knew she was going to die. It's amazing. Like endings matter. And then you skip to what I say about choosing your truth is the most rebellious act. So that just like was such a gift. Thank you for doing that. I'm really touched.
I would have read the whole thing, but I'm mindful of time.
Yes, you
So I just thought that was really
Thank you.
Did you want to have, should we do questions? Should we invite folks?
Yeah, let's see.
How do we want to do that?
We'll see. Do people have questions? Do you want to engage in a Q&A? Because otherwise we have a little activity
yes.
that you can engage with. It'll be more like you're engaging with the person next to you. So which would you prefer? Asking questions?
If there are questions.
Okay, I guess we're gonna do activity, which is exciting being a learning experience designer. All right. So please find somebody next to you. If it's threes, that's fine. Jaya and I have a prompt. So this is the prompt, and Dad, I know you've done this before. The prompt is, what would it look like if you lived more boldly tomorrow? What would it look like if you lived more boldly tomorrow? You're going to share with the person next to you, and then as a closing, we'll invite a voice or two to share. So I'll give you 2 minutes or
So
so.
what would it look like to live more boldly tomorrow?
For you. All right, we're gonna time you.
3 minutes. Yeah. A little bit. We keep repeating this. I mean, it's but you know my backstory. We've been there for so long. And like
Right.
maybe not.
Was there anything you didn't get to that you wanted to, or yeah? And then you have to head out like 7:30 on the dot, right? Like,
People on the site, but also to like kind of ideas where we're like keep our house like
maybe I could buy a couple and then just come out. Let me do that. Let me do that.
and move back in, like so it seems very like
Yeah, exactly.
having like a temporary second residence, but anyway, so that's living boldly, I guess, is to imagine like something that does not that's like out of the norm of like about a month late.
I did not recognize her. Oh, I'll have to say hi. Yes. Oh my goodness.
I want to get rid of everything. Right. Right. I've been like for a while. So and then I you just got it, but unfortunately.
Like you say, it's so beautiful. I letter looks very similar to that. But mine's like a one page. It is so similar. She knew when she put it in an envelope.
Like it's not like your house.
Yeah, I'll just send you. Yeah, yours is that one is longer, but it's the same. No, and no, transitioning and getting ready to. There's that inner knowing, right? When she knew it was the last time, when you knew. Yeah.
We recently moved to the city. 1 year.
I. But I. But I feel like I really want that's paid for. This is ancient. Those are not. At least we're gonna be here for the next year. Kind of bit longer here, like. And time, how I spend my time, I feel like we just try to pick up college and make it. And we make time in my, I would say, for a year. I feel like figuring out a job in college, it's like, well, it's gonna be this forever. And like, I spend my time and make it very easy. It's like, me, I'm with friends. But my creative, I really like exploring. I just like a lot of problems I really want to do. Like, kind of have. And I feel like. I don't want to like make
We're waiting and then we'll read it. And should I hold the book up? Do that.
Like getting that together. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, great party.
I know, I'm so fun.
I know.
Keep going.
Well, he's in the group with my dad.
Yeah. Okay, boss. Yay.
All right, so we're back, and we'd love to know if anybody wants to share. We have time for one or two voices.
Yeah.
What would living boldly look
Yeah.
like tomorrow?
Or even what you discussed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, so quiet now.
Yeah.
We'll call on people.
No,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Woo! Did you decide that after this hour? Did you just decide that after hearing Ingrid? Yeah.
Always good to be.
Yeah.
Always good to be.
Oh.
Thanks, Patrice.
And then being, speaking up louder, right?
So yes, being multicultural, multi-ethnic, I'm told by one instead of him, put your head down and work, don't disturb other people. But I'm like, no, I'm not a troublemaker, but if you see something, say something, speak up. So I am living boldly. Advocating. That's great. Like, why are we doing that?
Nice.
Oh.
That's so great. Thank
Those
you.
are both so bold.
Yeah.
Such a lot of about the troublemaker. No, you're too passive. It's like kind of.
Oh.
But we
Mm.
Yeah, nice,
Yeah.
nice reframe. That's awesome. Anyone from this side of the room?
So quiet, but you were so chatty earlier.
Yes.
We kind of talked about how, I'm the youngest person that I've heard that we talked about how like, you're younger, you have a lot more not opportunities, but like a lot more reasons to like step out of your shell when as you get older, you kind of already become comfortable with that. So we were commenting that like, I feel like every month I'm like overcoming this new thing where I have to live boldly. Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that. I think it inspires people that every month that should be a norm. So thank Ellen. All
Thank
right.
you all for
Yeah,
sharing.
thank you for participating in that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jaya.
Of
And
course, thank you all
And,
for coming.
I wanted you to all know, so I'm taking, I guess, a red eye back home tonight. And so I have about half an hour where I've got books in the back, happy to sell them, sign them and dedicate them to you and shop them with my Asian stamp. I would love to not come home with 22 of those books. So if there's somebody that you're thinking about, because a lot of you brought books, which was really touching, I will sign your books. And if you would like to get one for a friend or a family member who might be mixed Asian or queer or multicultural, multiracial, it would be such an honor for me to not come home with those 22 books. So thank you, Ellen and Teach.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Oh, yes, please.
Buy one book.
Yeah.
That's perfect word.
Any books left over, we'll take it, put it in our library shelf.
Oh, thank you.
But. Second thing is, thank you so much, Ellen and Teach and everybody for organizing and the time you spend with us on our podcast. Pay attention. The 1882 is trying to become modern, right? And the direction is with A1 and different things. We just opened an office in Sacramento. We're spending a lot of time there and doing historical preservation projects out there. We just finished getting the Summit Tunnel, the railroad Summit Tunnel, that one there, it's now a national historic landmark. That culminates almost like 15 years of steady work. And so that's happening. And so, but things that are closer to Washington, pay attention. A lot of things for us to do. Tomorrow, there's a big event with the DC, with the Humanities Council. They're talking about how to write and how to do various things. You know that? Take a look at the Humanities Council, and it's more than just a Chinese American orientation. It's about how to be creative, how to market yourself and things of this sort. Can't remember all the details yet, but that's happens to be tomorrow. Your plane will probably be. The other thing is on Sunday at the church right over here, we will be having a presentation there. It's because Veterans Veterans Day is coming up. We also have a presentation there on Asian Americans in the military.
Oh,
So come on over. Here it's an hour. You come earlier, you can meet a lot of the people at the church. The church, by the way, is historically going to have its 90th birthday.
Wow.
The Chinese community church.
Like one at the end,
right? It's the one that's been in Chinatown for a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
Wow. The other thing is that there's a wonky mark portrait right here. Actually, there's a pair. There's another one that is with Mabel Pinghua Lee. Everybody knows who she is.
No.
She's
No.
a New York. She's a New York suffragette. And what we would like to do is create a huge portrait of her over there next to the Joaquin Oliver portrait. So when you guys go home, if you're going by the metro station and if you haven't noticed it, it's a wonderful portrait mural.
Wow.
It was done by Marshall Fields. So it's quite by a well-known muralist and artist who's done things with President Obama and portraits like that. So what we want to do is add to that mural portrait, a mural portrait of Mabel Pinghua Lee, suffragette, lived in the 1930s, and she was advocating for the vote for the women before she could even vote because she was Chinese. But I think it's very important for us to celebrate that, mark it in Chinatown. I don't think because if Black Lives Matter street went away, let's put up another portrait that says the vote is still very important to us. And I think that it would be the first time that a Chinese American woman ever has had that bold a portrait put up at the nation's capital. So I think I feel very strongly that we can raise the money. We have the art, most of the things put into place. We just need to do some crowdsourcing, get the money and get it done by July 4th next year, which is also the 250th anniversary of the Constitution. So we want to make sure that that's done at a time when our democracy is a little bit shaky. So let's make sure that we have it. And also, it's a demonstration that Chinatown is not just about food and restaurants. We also have powerful women and powerful people that are engaged in the issues of the time. And this, in case voting, how can you miss that? We thought about Wong Kim Ark, the birthright citizenship, but and that is very important. But I feel like for this time around, Mabel Lee is the person that we're going to select. So